Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller suspense films from 2024, titled Sharp Corner. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a family comprised of a married couple named Josh and Rachel McSell, and their 6-year-old son, Max. At the moment, they've just arrived at their new home, and seem very excited. The house is located on the outskirts of the city, providing more space and peace than they've ever known. After settling in, Josh excitedly reveals how he plans to build a golf course in the yard. Rachel, on the other hand, expresses her joy at finally being able to sleep without the noises and glare of street lamps. On the first night, Max is scared to fall asleep in the new place, so Josh brings him his favorite toy, and assures him that no one will come to hurt him. After tucking the kid in, Josh joins his wife in the living room, and they discuss the decoration of the house. The couple seems genuinely content, and Rachel remarks that she hasn't seen Josh this happy in a long time, and they end up making love in the living room. But then, the window unexpectedly shatters and a car launches into the room. The couple is horrified to see a car collide with a tree right on their front lawn. The next morning, we see Josh attending a meeting at work, but struggling to focus when he reads the news about a teen who died last night in the accident outside his home. After getting off work, Josh picks up his son and then his wife, who works as a therapist. On the way home, he shows Rachel the news article about yesterday's accident, revealing the teen driver was drunk. He also confesses that he might be experiencing PTSD after witnessing the event last night, and shouldn't have left home. But Rachel refuses to talk about the accident, saying she's too disturbed to even think about it. Later at home, Max is happily playing with his toys on the lawn outside. But Rachel grows uneasy knowing it's the exact corner spot where the car crashed, and quickly sends him back inside. Josh, meanwhile, remains unconcerned. Later, Josh is mowing his lawn when he notices the family of last night's victim arriving at the accident site carrying flowers and a cross. Josh immediately hides in the garage, and quietly watches as the grieving family sets up a memorial. After they leave, Josh approaches the memorial and discovers the deceased's name was Kyle. The poor guy was only 18, which fills Josh's heart with sorrow. Here, he looks around to see what caused the accident, and notices a sharp corner road sign partially hidden behind thick leaves. The next day, we see Josh at work, still thinking about the accident and searching for Kyle's profile on social media. His heart breaks even more as he watches Kyle's joyful vlogs, and realizes how abruptly the boy's future was cut short. The scene then cuts to the McSell's housewarming party, where several friends and colleagues have gathered. Everyone chats joyfully and congratulates the couple on their new chapter. But Josh suddenly begins talking about the brutal accident that happened on their lawn. He describes in great detail how the driver died, which makes everyone uncomfortable. Josh keeps going, and reveals how Kyle was about to graduate and had even received a sports scholarship. A surprised Rachel asks how he knows so much, and Josh claims he read it in the obituary. The guests sense the growing tension, and immediately change the topic. After they leave, Rachel angrily tells her husband he shouldn't have mentioned the accident earlier. But Josh explains that since such a traumatic event happened right before him, he was naturally curious. Rachel insists he needs to see a therapist to work through his feelings, and suggests one of her colleagues, Peter. She adds that he looked smug while telling the story, like he was cashing in on someone's misfortune. However, Josh brushes off her concerns as nonsense. The next day, Josh grabs a chainsaw and heads toward the sharp corner signboard by the roadside. He cuts away the overgrown branches around it, making the sign clearly visible to help prevent another accident from happening. Days later, Josh decides to move on from the accident and focus on his family instead. They spend the day at an amusement park, and try to enjoy a break from everything. That evening, Josh is grilling meat, right when he hears this. It turns out that a new accident has occurred when one vehicle violently crashed into another one, and one of the cars ends up speeding away. After calling 911, a worried Josh rushes to the crashed car and finds the driver badly injured. He begins talking to the man in the hopes of keeping him conscious until help arrives. But the man can't hold on much longer, and tragically succumbs to his injuries. Just then, the deceased's phone starts ringing, and it's a call from someone named Alicia. At this moment, the authorities also finally show up. In the aftermath, Rachel insists they can't stay here any longer, as all the chaos is frightening their son. However, Josh is distraught by the accident, and insists he could have saved the injured man since he was the first on the scene. He also adds that moving out is an overreaction, and suggests they install guardrails to ensure their safety. The next day at his office, Josh connects the deceased man's phone to his computer. He scrolls through the photos and videos, and realizes the man had a deep love for golf. Days later, Josh attends the man's funeral, even though he never knew the victim personally. He then approaches a distraught Alicia, who turns out to be the victim's daughter, so Josh claims that her dad spoke about her a lot. When Alicia asks how he knew her father, Josh claims they met on a golf course. Desperate to save lives, Josh signs up for a first aid class and learns how to perform CPR. He even decides to purchase one of the dummies to practice CPR at home. From then on, he becomes consumed with mastering first aid, and completely ignores his work responsibilities. One day, Josh is summoned to his boss's office, where he's informed that a team member has filed a complaint about his negligence. He lets Josh off the hook this time, but urges him to focus on bonding with his team. That evening, Rachel is bathing her son when she notices bald patches on his head. The worried woman asks if he's been pulling out his own hair, and Max admits he has. The next day, the couple decides to take Max to a psychiatrist to better understand the situation. The doctor suggests that the frequent accidents in front of their home might be causing the boy stress and anxiety. Rachel agrees with this, but Josh argues that their son never actually witnessed any of the incidents, and only heard the noise. He then offers to spend more time with their son for a few days, hoping to understand what's really bothering him. Rachel worries about his job and the money, but Josh assures her that he can work remotely if needed. In the following scene, Josh skips work, and decides to spend time with Max at home. But instead of truly focusing on his son, he keeps slipping away into his room, and practicing CPR on the dummy. When Rachel returns home, she announces that she's enrolled Max in a Taekwondo class, hoping it will help him manage his anxiety. This upsets Josh, who insists that he's been making real progress with Max, and doesn't want anything to interfere with it, but Rachel urges him to keep an open mind. The next day, Max begins his Taekwondo class, and Josh skips work to accompany him. On their way home, he notices an ambulance speeding past, which immediately worries him. It turns out there has been another accident at the sharp corner right at his lawn, this time even more brutal. Josh tells his son to stay in the car and rushes outside, where he sees a woman screaming and begging to save her husband. Firefighters quickly extinguish the crashed car, and extract the injured man from the vehicle. As they begin administering first aid, Josh watches with intense interest. He gets too close to the victim, prompting the police to order him to back away. Moments later, a reporter approaches Josh, and asks him to describe what he witnessed. Josh explains that while several accidents have occurred at that corner before, this one is by far the worst he has ever seen. Suddenly, he remembers his son is still in the car and rushes to find him. But to his shock, Max is nowhere inside, and Rachel has also returned home. The couple searches everywhere, but can't find their son. In the end, they find Max standing quietly, and watching the crashed car out of curiosity. After this incident, Josh finally attends therapy with Peter upon his wife's strong insistence. There, he meets Peter's adorable golden retriever named Drake. Josh then opens up during the session, revealing the trauma from the brutal accident, and how Max ended up seeing things he wasn't supposed to witness. He confesses that he holds Rachel responsible because she signed Max up for Taekwondo. Josh believes that if there hadn't been a Taekwondo class, he would have been at home, and could have saved the injured man. A few days later, Josh finally returns to work, only to learn that his boss has decided to fire him because the company has lost a major client due to his negligence. Josh grows worried and explains that he was dealing with some personal issues. However, his boss refuses to change his mind and admits the decision was not easy for him either. That evening, Josh doesn't say anything to his wife and pretends everything is normal. The next day, Rachel mentions that Max has a therapy session in the afternoon, and Josh decides to join them. After the mother and son leave the house, Josh spends the rest of the day practicing first aid on the CPR dummy. He becomes anxious every time he hears a vehicle pass by, and stays alert in case something happens. With nothing else to do, he starts watching videos of car crashes online. Not long after, a pregnant couple pulls up outside the house. Josh greets the visitors and exchanges a brief conversation with them, but doesn't invite them inside. Sometime later, Josh arrives for Max's therapy session, and a furious Rachel suddenly reveals that she called his workplace, and discovered he no longer works there. But Josh tries to brush it off, while the doctor reassures them that Max shows no signs of PTSD, but warns that it can sometimes emerge months after a traumatic event. Just then, Rachel receives a call from their realtor, and she quickly excuses herself to answer it. The scene then shifts to their home, where an angry Rachel is packing her and Max's belongings. She's furious to discover that Josh scared off the potential buyers by warning them about the string of accidents. She's also upset that he didn't inform her about his dismissal from the job. Josh tries to stop her, claiming that the buyers were pregnant, and that he didn't have the conscience to hide the truth. But Rachel refuses to listen, and, to make matters worse, she finds the CPR dummy. She thinks her husband is a nutjob who actually wanted the accidents to happen. In the end, Rachel storms out with Max, leaving Josh completely alone in the house. Some time later, Josh meets with his lawyer, who reveals that Rachel has filed for divorce, and restricted his access to Max to just 2 hours a week. Josh wants to fight for custody, so the lawyer explains that first, he will need to sell his current house, and live nearby Max's school. Basically, he needs to prove to the court that Max's safety and well-being are his number one concern. Hearing this, Josh agrees, and begins preparing the house to sell. When he visits Max, the boy shares how upset he is about the divorce, and how hard it is to be away from his dad. Josh promises that once the house is sold, he will find a new place nearby, and they will be able to spend all of their time together. Days later, a couple arrives to see the house, and is immediately impressed, though they're surprised by the low price. When they ask what the catch is, Josh claims it's nothing, and he's just going through a divorce. He reveals he needs to sell the house fast and divide the money 50-50. The couple seems satisfied by the explanation, and doesn't ask further questions. Long story short, Josh finally manages to sell the house, and video calls his son to share the good news. He promises that he will soon find a new place where they can spend all their time together. The boy gets excited, and says he wants a dog like Drake. Upon hearing this, Josh recalls that Drake is the dog of his therapist, Peter, who is actually Rachel's college friend. This realization hints at something going on between them, which worries the poor man. Afterward, he talks to Rachel, who's angry that he's promising things to Max without knowing how the divorce will turn out. Josh tries to explain that he's working on getting his life back together, but Rachel makes it clear she has no intention of sharing custody. She believes the whole situation is unhealthy, and insists that Max needs stability, something Josh can't provide right now. The harsh truth stings Josh deeply. After ending the call, Josh loads his stuff into a truck, and prepares to leave for good. It is raining heavily, and at one point, he slips on the floor outside, but doesn't sustain any injuries. His mind then races with concern about a possible accident, and he keeps an eye on the road every time a vehicle passes by. He even keeps a first aid kit ready, and stays by the window all night, but the accident doesn't happen. At one point, Josh grows impatient, and is overwhelmed by a desperate urge to take matters into his own hands. He then deliberately sprays the asphalt with a hose, making the road slicker and even more dangerous. But a vehicle soon passes by safely with no accident, which only deepens his frustration. Determined to provoke something drastic, Josh pulls out a chainsaw and cuts down the sharp corner signboard, hoping to set off the disaster he has been waiting for. After that, Josh paces aimlessly by the window, silently wishing for the accident to happen, but nothing does. Exhaustion quickly takes over, and he eventually falls asleep. And then finally, His sick wish comes true when a car loses control at the sharp corner and crashes onto his front lawn. This becomes Josh's moment to shine, and he immediately rushes outside to help the victim. He spots a woman barely conscious, and tries to keep her alive by speaking to her. Josh also grabs some tools and begins to pry open the car door with great force. At this moment, a bus passing by suddenly stops, and several people rush over to help. Josh urges them to call 911, and after a tense struggle, he finally manages to open the car door, and pull the woman out. He then acts like a professional and tries to revive her, but she isn't breathing. Josh pours all of his skill and knowledge into saving her, but no matter how hard he tries, it seems hopeless. Realizing it isn't that easy, the remorseful man breaks down in tears after realizing he may have just killed an innocent woman. Just when all hope seems lost, the woman finally starts breathing again, bringing a wave of relief to Josh. The medics also arrive at this point, and commend him for his actions. As the movie ends, we see a proud smile spread across Josh's face, as he has finally become the hero he always wanted to be. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.